Hey, it's Dylan. This is the second half of the Trail Talk video on lowering prices. The first half is on the Megaphone NC profile page. For years now, childcare has been a key part of Kamala's economic policy. See, she saw it as inseparable from the migration of women out of the workforce that was being caused by the pandemic. This may seem like common sense, but apparently it was a pretty novel idea in politics, where childcare is usually grouped as a women's issue, as the women aren't part of the economy or childcare costs don't affect everyone and everything.
We'll get into more detail in future episodes, but Biden-Harris policies kept North Carolina child care centers open after the initial pandemic and carried many of them through to this summer. They've now proposed a way to lower parent costs immensely while getting better pay to Head Start workers. Trump has not presented any child care related policies and refused to answer a question about it during the debate. However, one of his directors in the Department of Health and Human Services, Roger Severino, has written a 54-page policy proposal for Trump's second term that addresses it. North Carolina has one of the best pre-K programs in the country. Of the 25,000 kids in the program, 14,000 of them rely on Head Start funding. Severino's proposal includes shutting down the Head Start program. We'll talk about the full proposal in our education episode.
I worked at Target from 2019 to 2022, and I saw and heard some crazy things during that time. From the weird toilet paper hoarding to people screaming about masks at the older woman who worked at the door. Something big I remember was how hard it was to keep the shelves stocked. Our Starbucks would run out of milk multiple times a week, and there wasn't always something on the nearby grocery shelf to raid.
Global supply chain collapse made prices skyrocket, and they've taken their sweet time coming back down. The Biden-Harris administration is working to lower the cost of food in a lasting way by focusing on agriculture and supply chains. They are currently making it easier for smaller farms to compete with big ag by investing in small independent farm growth and punishing monopoly behavior and price gouging. This competition is meant to push prices down from the artificial heights they are currently at and keep this from happening in the future. They are also working to close gaps in the U.S. supply chain so that global events in the future don't have as devastating or lasting an effect as the pandemic did. Finally, they have been increasingly pressuring companies to lower prices to a reasonable level after calling them out for artificial prices. Kamala has repeatedly pointed to how so many companies have posted record profits every year since 2020, while pretending their prices have stayed up because of increased cost of business. As we have returned to a normal inflation rate, people have begun delaying purchases and finding cheaper options. This has finally begun to force companies to gradually return to normal pricing behavior. The Fed is expected to lower interest rates next month, which should help even more.
Trump's go-to tool as president was imposing trade tariffs on our allies. While these did help create some manufacturing jobs, they also cost the average household $1,300 a year in 2020.
He's now proposing much higher tariffs that will cost the average household up to $3,900 a year. These tariffs could potentially spark a trade war that causes a global depression, but we'll get into that in our Foreign Affairs episode.
That's all for today. Join us next week when Kwame will look into how the candidates approach programs and tax credits that provide help for families who are having a hard time.